Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to another installment of the No Sleep podcast, where stories are shared not just to scare you, but to help you sleep. Alright, this one comes from a username. Now this story has been edited for language and clarity, and minor details have been omitted to prevent any doxing or identifying of any real people. So let's jump right into it. I still remember the metallic tang of fear that coated my tongue the moment I stepped out of that battered RV and into the heart of the North Carolina wilderness. And I can feel it now, years later, as I recount every detail with the trembling precision of a man who came back from hell. My name is Mark Davidson, and I'd convinced my friend Sarah Turner, whose obsession with capturing the extraordinary had her lugging around cameras that weighed as much as her backpack, and Leo Grant, a self-proclaimed folklorist who spent more time reading tattered pamphlets on local legends than looking for cell reception to join me for a boys' weekend. At Lilies Creek Campground, a place so remote that the sun sank behind jagged pines before our tires had even stopped spinning on the gravel road. The ranger who handed us our permits at a solitary wooden kiosk looked as though he hadn't smiled since the Clinton administration, and when he pressed the thin envelope of our permit into my hand, he whispered, so low I almost missed it, "Keep that lantern close. Kid, some lights out here aren't meant to guide you home." I laughed at the cautionary sage act, but as soon as we passed out of sight of the ranger station, the forest seemed to swallow the sky and the air turned cold and still, like the world itself was holding its breath. We parked next to a cleft in the trees where moss choked the cracked asphalt, pitched our tents under a canopy of skeletal branches, and set to building a fire in the iron ring at the edge of the clearing. The logs we dragged from the ranger's woodpile smelled faintly of rotten resin, and when the flames finally caught, they spat embers into the air that trailed away like fiery ghosts into the fog that rolled in so fast it was as though a switch had been flipped. Sarah, the professional, adjusted her lens, but even she couldn't retrieve a clear shot. Her photos revealed only the dull orange of our fire and nothing beyond, as if someone had painted the world black with a single brush. Leo tried to lighten the mood with jokes about the Skinwalker Ranch, but when the temperature plunged and an unnatural silence settled over us, even he trailed off mid-sentence, his breath puffing in white clouds. I was already uneasy, but I dismissed it all as nerves until I woke to a deliberate scraping sound, like a metal bucket being dragged over concrete, just outside my tent. Heart hammering, I unzipped the flap and swept my flashlight beam into the void. The fog lay in thick tendrils across the ground, and in that moment I understood why the ranger's warning had been so urgent. There was something in the hush, something alive and watching. I called for Sarah and Leo, but the only answer was the dead silence of the woods and the slow drip of condensation from the canopy overhead. At dawn, Sarah Escamra finally gave us the first hint of what had prowled our camp, a single frame that showed a diagonal streak of shadow, impossibly crisp and black as ink, slashing across the trees. We shrugged it off as a lens flare, but when I followed her camera's trail, I found footprints pressed into the damp earth, each nearly a foot long, with toes splayed like talons and a gait that suggested deliberate stalking. They led away from our tents and into the forest, then turned sharply and vanished before us, as though whoever had made them wanted to be seen. By the time we hiked up the ridge to shake off our unease, the trail had become oppressively quiet. No birds sang, no insects buzzed, and every cracking twig sounded like a footstep. We reached a small clearing where the remains of a low stone foundation lay hidden beneath ivy and dead leaves, and when Leo brushed moss off a rusted plaque, I read the words out loud. Lilies Creek Sanatorium ESD 1908, Evelyn Moore. I shivered and Sarah's lips went white. Evelyn Moore was the nurse who had vanished here in 19, said to have wandered into the woods after her patients died one by one. We tried to leave, but our nerves had betrayed us, and by nightfall we found ourselves drawn back to the campfire, as though bound by invisible chains. The lantern that hung by the ranger's shed in the morning was gone. In its place hovered a lantern in midair, a soft yellow glow swinging under the boughs like it was carried by no hand at all. When Leo raised his camera to capture it, the click of the shutter seemed to split the world in two. For an instant we saw her, Evelyn Moore, tall and gaunt, her uniform stretched unnaturally over limbs bent at angles. No human joint should achieve her face a smooth void, until the flash revealed her eyes burning with desperate hunger. Then she was gone. The lantern winked out, and the night closed in like a trap. I broke the silence first, bolting for the RV with Sarah and Leo close behind me, but even behind the locked door, the scratching at the metal siding began low and urgent, followed by a guttural whine that rose into a howl no animal could produce. We huddled together as the thing pressed its face against the windowpane, its claws scoring long furrows in the metal, and I swear I saw my own reflection contorted by its grief. before it leaned in close and breathed my name. Joined me as if I were the one lost soul it had waited 80 years to claim. At dawn, the forest looked innocent again, betrayed only by the muddied prints circling the RV and the silent, watchful trees. We left without our tents, our gear, even our dignity, roaring down the gravel road until the tree line blurred into the horizon. Back home, I pored over newspapers and old archives until I found a photograph. A grainy black and white image of a nurse clutching a lantern in a stand of pines, her face hidden behind shadow. Evelyn Moore, they said, died of a broken heart that night, but I know Bedison broken her soul, and she's been dragging it through the forest ever since, searching for company. Even now, long after the wound should have healed, I wake to the scent of kerosene wafting beneath my door and a faint amber glow dancing across the ceiling, and I realize that when you answer an invitation from the dark, you never truly escape its light. Alright, that was The Invitation from the Dark, written by a user named McMac. If you liked this story, make sure to check out the channel. That's where we publish original horror fiction and ULL, find exclusive content you won't find anywhere else. We also publish listener call-in stories on the channel, as well as bonus podcast episodes and other cool stuff. We're currently working on producing more content than we ever have, and there is a lot of cool stuff coming up in the near future. So please consider supporting the show. It's a great way to support the channel and get some cool perks in return. You can get some neat swag, access to our private Discord server, early access to ad-free podcast episodes, and even the occasional free audio. There's a link to the Patreon in the description, and if you use the link provided, you'll get double the rewards for your pledge for a limited time. And another quick reminder, if you're not already subscribed to the main No Sleep podcast channel, go ahead and do that so you don't miss any new episodes. Also, while you're at it, subscribe to the No Sleep channel. Make sure you tune into our second channel for the best in modern horror. New videos are published every week. You'll find all sorts of terrifying tales waiting for you. There's a link in the description. Well, that's all for this episode. Thanks for listening. If you have a story you want to submit to the podcast, you can head on over to com and click on Submit Your Story. Please consider subscribing and leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to the podcast. And as always, don't forget to turn your lights off and stay in the shadows.